This is the Succeed in Business podcast. The podcast is inspired by a book titled Succeed in Business, Learn from Your Business Failures and Succeed. The book shares practical information on how to find inspiration in humble beginnings to become a successful entrepreneur. Through this book, you will learn that starting small is always the best way, and if you fail, you are equipped enough to start again. It also provides nuggets at the end that you need to read daily to know how to navigate challenges in your small business. If you want to get a copy of the book, contact Mpho Nenweli at 082-567-3099 on WhatsApp and on email mpho@anisa.co.za. The book costs 259 rands including courier.
Hello everyone, this is Mpho Nenweli. This is the Succeed in Business podcast. Today's podcast, I'm gonna look at the issue of unity of Africans. I'm calling upon all Africans, both locally in the African continent and in the diaspora, to unite for business. As pointed out, this is the Succeed in Business podcast. This podcast will bring the best in you. Success is within your reach. Failure is inspiration. Do not give up. I thank you. In this episode, I'll look at a variety of issues. These issues primarily focusing on the African continent and the unity of Africans in business. I'll look at issues of population and the economy. I'll look at challenges that we are facing as a continent. I will look at opportunities. What is the role of government in ensuring that the business environment is conducive for small businesses to start and thrive. I'll look at talking to fellow Africans to unite, and in particular also giving a plea to Africans in the diaspora to come home and invest in the continent for the good of themselves and for the good of the continent at large. The first important thing that I want to discuss is the issue of population and the economy. Africa is home to above 500 million people, and it is anticipated that by 2050 the population is going to grow to approximately 1.1 billion people. That simply means there's going to be a huge market for goods and services. There's good potential for economic growth. So if you come and invest in Africa, we have enough people to procure your goods and your services. So we have enough consumers. The other thing is also that Africa still imports quite a lot of goods, clothes, food, machinery, technology. These are the things that if you come establish your small business in Africa or your large business, you can be able to provide to the African population, and the demand is quite huge, and it's going to grow over the years as the population almost doubles by 2050. We have a very youthful population that's full of energy, and this youthful population, they are very innovative people. They're just looking for opportunities. Obviously, we have a myriad of challenges in the African continent that we all know about, and that is basically your poverty, the issue of poor services, unemployment, but these point to the need of business opportunities, the need for small business people to come and fill a void in the provision of goods and services. So there's quite plenty of opportunities that are presented by a myriad of problems that our countries here in Africa face. So if we unite, we mobilize, we can be able to come with something exciting within the context of business to be able to liberate our people. We do not have to rely on politicians and governments, but as people, we can be able to get things going in the space of business. I want to continue again on the issue of challenges for businesses in Africa. Like I said, there are population challenges that we can address: inequality, poverty, unemployment, but these pose quite a lot of interesting opportunities that we can handle. Infrastructure is a big problem in Africa: the roads, telecommunications, the whole government infrastructure, the admin systems are not existent. These are the things that also provide opportunities for small entrepreneurs to come into the space and start small businesses that can be sustainable, offering goods and services of high quality to our people. Funding is a very big problem, and corruption, both fueled by people in government and people within the private sector itself. The concept of greed, people just wanting to amass almost all the wealth for themselves. These are the issues that we have in Africa, but corruption is everywhere in the world. We just have to ensure that in Africa we have to find ways of minimizing it, controlling it, to the point that people can be able to start and do businesses without being able to suffer a lot unnecessarily, without facing extra burdens. They can just focus on the innovation, on finding solutions for problems, on providing provision of goods and services. The issue of lack of trust, lack of collaboration amongst Africans is another issue. Obviously, the crooks that we also find amongst ourselves, that's another challenge. But that doesn't mean that we don't have people with good intentions to do business. And that doesn't mean people, in particular Africans, must be deterred by the fact that there's one person who was robbed or one crook. We just have to come up with systems, set up systems where we can be able to do due diligence, be able to check who to trade with. We cannot just say, okay, Africa is full of people that are not good. It's not necessarily the case. Just a few people that create a bad impression about Africa, and we must not really give up on ourselves and the continent because of those few people. But at the same time, Africa presents a lot of opportunities. It's a sea of opportunities. They are unlimited, and that's why in this particular video I felt I just need to talk to Africans, both at home in the African continent and also in the diaspora, to say, come home. There is unlimited opportunities for you. We have plenty of minerals. Some are being discovered today, be it oil, be it gas, be it platinum, be it coal. We have a lot of unlimited opportunities in this particular continent. We've got forests, we have got natural areas that are some of the most beautiful in the world. Really, Africa is the Eden. For tourism purposes, there's a lot of areas that are unexplored. There's a lot of spaces, rivers, access to the oceans, the fisheries. We've got good and humble people that you can be able to do business with. Rich culture and heritage in the form of music, paintings, art, wood carvings. Some of the most diverse and the greatest ever is available in the continent. And you move even within one country, from one tribe to the other, the difference in culture is intense. It's something that is completely untapped. It's something that we can package in high quality and share these dances, these dresses, these ways of doing things, these ways of living, these sustainable ways of life, these environmental ways of environmental friendly ways of living and interacting with nature. The manner in which we build our houses, the manner in which we interact with each other, the manner in which we treat each other. There is so much that can be tapped into movies, documentaries, films. It's quite a lot. So there's a lot of wealth. These rich cultures are tapped. We're also home to a place where our economies are anticipated to grow faster as our populations also grow. Countries such as Angola, they've been experiencing very good economic growth. There's a whole host of other countries that are also in the same space. But obviously, there are things that I feel government must do. It's important. I've seen here, in particular, politicians. Giving an example here, I've listened to some of the state of the province address, and I hear the desperation of the politicians to create job opportunities for people because of the increasing levels of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. But really, the biggest solution that has been proved in other countries that are developing, such as China and other countries in the East, create a very business-friendly climate or environment where a person can be able to start and run a small business with ease. That in itself creates the most employment opportunities, generates good income for the country for tax purposes that can also be shared in the forms of social security. For government to be able to create a climate like that, they need to set up systems to handle a variety of activities. For example, here in South Africa, I still don't understand why with such advancement you have to go to a different department to deal with the compensation for employees, and then you go to somewhere other place to deal with issues of unemployment insurance. You go to SARS for tax somewhere else, and then for company registration you go somewhere else. They are failing to just bridge all these systems into one, and to ensure that the entrepreneur can trade at the comfort of his home or his office by a click of a button. That's all that we need to create as a conducive environment for business people to thrive. Set up cheaper offices throughout the country, both in rural and urban. These old unused government offices must be repurposed and be allocated to entrepreneurs to come in and innovate, be given to them at a lower rental cost, so that they can be able to come together, gather within a community of practice, share, pool resources together, but be allowed to innovate. These are the things that government should be doing. There's so many buildings that are derelict, that are built and never used for the purpose, that can just be used. And then we create hubs for commerce, hubs for small businesses throughout the whole country. We must also not concentrate mainly on the urban areas to the point where people find almost no opportunity if they are staying in rural areas. And we have to have the masses of our people migrate to come and stay in informal settlements, in squalor, in the urban areas. That is something that is not acceptable. Electronic system needs to be set to reduce human interference and corruption. Tenders must target small businesses and must be transparent to reduce corruption. There must be consequences, obviously, for people that are involved in corrupt activities. Not the situation where you find that even politicians that manage huge, large-scale projects, in some cases for housing, worth billions, that collapse completely, but they retain their positions year in, year out. If we do not thrive to push for meritocracy, hiring the best people for the job in Africa within our government departments, that will always be a stumbling block for creating a good climate for business people to thrive. We will always have people in offices together with politicians, always primarily focusing on taking money for their own use. This is something that it's very disturbing, because we appoint people who see these government jobs as the end. They don't see any life beyond these particular government jobs. But if you appoint people who are qualified in terms of merit, they have an array of other opportunities. They can work anywhere in the world. So they are not obliged to feel that in the 5 years or so that they are in office, the most important thing that they have to do is to loot, is to ensure that they position themselves to eat in perpetuity, creating a whole system of patronage and corruption that doesn't take anybody anywhere. So we need to bring the best in our offices to run our government, to run our systems. We also need to get the best people to work with entrepreneurs. I've seen in some government agencies, people get hired. Their job is to fund small businesses. But when you interact with these people, they have no clue on how a business runs. They don't even know how a small spaza shop runs, or even somebody running a small shop on the street selling stuff, how they stock, how they control the stuff, how they put their inventory, how they manage their money. They don't have a clue on that. So those people end up sending entrepreneurs from pillar to post for this document, that document, without really any care whatsoever. So this is a challenge. We are hiring the wrong people to administer a very critical aspect of leveraging the power of government, of ensuring that the economy moves. These people are not helpful in helping entrepreneurs. We end up getting discouraged by being sent up and down to acquire this and that document, this and that compliance document, to the point that they just make you give up on government funding, and you just start to tell yourself you'd rather do everything by yourself. The other challenge that I've also found is also that these people also tend to come up with conditions for funding that are crazy, if I were to put it in that way, insane, if I were to put it that way. I'll give a very simple example. As a person, for example, in the tourism space in South Africa, government has got an array of funding possibilities for me to expand my tourism business. But one of the conditions they want, I must acquire a piece of land and then appoint people, specialists, to do all the designs at risk, and then go and apply for funding with no guarantee. And then this is being done to people like me, who coming from the former disadvantaged communities, an environment of poverty, in a country where more than 70% of the land is not owned by black people. And the very same black people who are now sitting in offices come with such ridiculous conditions that they just make it impossible for a black entrepreneur to move or even access the funding. I guess most of the time, the money that they have end up not being dispensed, not being used to fund people. And obviously, in those cases, then they will go on and identify their fellow friends, assist them to get whatever compliance documents they can, and help them access the money, knowing that that money is going to be lost and there's going to be no consequence for them and even the person borrowing the money. Whilst the entrepreneurs that deserve the money, that have the energy, will just be given a long list of things that they need to comply with, and then they just give up and then keep moving by themselves. So what I've seen is that government is willing to come and fund a person who is already successful, who is already doing something good, so that they can write in their books that they're doing something nice and excellent. They don't want to deal with somebody with potential. I understand there are risks. They are trying to manage the money. They are trying to ensure the money is used for the right purpose. But there are people who, by thorough assessment, who can be able to be given money, who have got enough potential, who have got enough intention to do good. And they've been running their businesses from their own pockets for years. And these people deserve to be given some form of funding. And there must be ways of assisting these particular people. It's also important in my observation to ensure that the committees in these particular institutions where the money is put to fund small businesses, there must be an array of stakeholders to safeguard the funds. We need to bring multiple stakeholders to minimize the corruption, instead of these government officials just giving money by themselves, taking money, sometimes siphoning it to friends and relatives through dubious means. There must be checks and balances. There must be people that they do not work with who are going to be able to do good, who are going to ensure that there's quality control, money is being given to the right people. So government needs really to afford opportunities to small businesses. This whole issue of taking all the money, lumping it on one company to do the tenders from, Limpopo to Cape Town, province to province, all the work is given to just one company. It's really not good. And the people are seeing this. They can see that they are consolidating, the politicians are consolidating the cake so that they can eat it together with their favored few, one or two to three people, instead of ensuring that they spread and every person in every corner of the country can be touched by the resources of the state. Every person must be able to do small work in their small towns, in their small areas. That way the state has got an impact on all the people. But the greed has made people to ensure that they just group the resources in one pot, disperse it to 2 to 3 individuals. They can be able to siphon it easily. They can also be able to eat it easily. That in itself is self-destructive. And obviously, governments in Africa that are using that particular model, in the end of the day, they're just gonna find themselves with almost no support. Because the way you build support is to make sure that you touch each and every corner of the country, each and every sector of the country, ensure that people benefit from the state resources, create a climate in which people can thrive, can innovate, can be able to harness their skills, can be able to work together without being blocked. Those are the things that government, I feel, need to do in order to make sure that we thrive as a continent. Small businesses grow in the continent, and that can lead to economic growth, and we can be able to have the resources without having to go to beg all the time to countries in the West for resources. And the same countries are siphoning the resources here from our continent through their businesses in the mining sector, in the variety of sectors. So we need really to find a way of coming to our senses and stop this approach and make government developmental, but at the same time encourage innovation and encourage enterprises to grow. I want to continue again on the issue of government. I also feel that government needs to also have a balanced way of promoting the economy in the country. We have a situation in South Africa where in the new dispensation since 1994, there was a complete neglect of the rural economies. For some reason, I think the ruling elite thought supporting businesses or economies in the rural areas or the former homelands, areas that were demarcated under apartheid to be under homelands run by some pseudo governments, do not really deserve any form of support. And I think they felt that supporting those areas is like supporting the people that used to run them, who were, put in by the apartheid government as some form of pseudo government. So I feel that there's something that still needs to be done in the rural areas. We cannot just neglect the infrastructure and let it rot. The factories that have been there that were producing clothes, jam, shoes, where I come from, in a small town called Tando, we used to have factories that produced clothes locally, good quality clothes, leather shoes. Those factories have closed long ago and they are just empty. Nobody knows much about them, nobody maintains them, to the point that nobody really cares, and rats are just running in the factories. So I feel something needs to be done to ensure that opportunities are created in those particular areas. Opportunities are given to people in every part of the country. The rural areas have got a lot of potential for agriculture. Yeah, so basically the thing is all areas need to be given equal opportunity, and it doesn't matter where the people are located. There's potential in every area. We just need to tap into that particular potential and really minimize the whole issue that people have to be made to believe that life is only found in the urban areas. And then when the people come to the urban areas here in Africa, we don't really plan for them. So we don't have the schools for them, we don't have the roads, we don't have the storage systems for them, we don't have the social amenities for them, we don't have the employment opportunities for them, we don't have the schools, we don't have the place for them to stay. So they end up in informal settlements with storage running there, and really in very depressing circumstances, in areas where people's future is bleak, with a lot of corruption. So it's something that we need to consider in Africa to create a balance and harness the potential of each and every area. We still have in some countries in Africa quite a lot or significant amount of people who are still based in rural areas. So there's quite a lot of good there. Organic food is still being grown in those rural areas. Countries such as Zimbabwe are quite very rural. In South Africa we still have a huge rural population, although migration is quite big into the urban areas. We really have to promote small businesses in all the corners. At the same time also, after democracy, we do find people who are quite very wealthy in South Africa. They also found all over the continent, and I feel they can do more to also empower small businesses. I've found that in most instances, I think they go for the easier thing, where they can put huge sums of money, which these sums of money are just given to in NGOs, cultural groups, as charitable causes. The money is not really invested in promoting black, emerging African entrepreneurs. So I really plead with the people who have got access to the resources, really, to still give to charity, but dedicate a particular amount of money to empowering emerging small African entrepreneurs. That in itself is good for everybody, because in a country like ours, it's quite not very good to have such huge amounts of inequality. It's unsustainable. That's why in the news all the time, as an example, in South Africa, you read of the danger of social unrest in South Africa. It is because the economy keeps squeezing the poor, whilst the rich are becoming richer, and the rich are very few and they give less. So in that particular situation, at some point in time, the poor are just gonna stand up, and there's a very serious danger that they can go around buying things. They're just not gonna bear the brunt of poverty forever on behalf of the very few who are getting wealthy, and they just sprinkle a little bit of a donation here and a donation there, just to brush their own egos, without any tangible, sustainable growth that can create job opportunities and liberate the people. The reliance on government in our African countries is quite too much, and government also must not see itself as the only one that can create employment opportunity, generate all the money, and solve all the problems for the people. People need to be empowered to stand up and do things. People have the potential. People don't want to be a charity case in our continent. We've got hard-working people that need to be given the little bit of resources, little bit of support, capacity building, mentoring, opening of the opportunities, opening up of those economic spaces which have been tightly controlled by a group of few racist organizations that make it impossible for any other entrepreneur to enter. Immediately they see a movement in it, they go all out to ensure that they destroy your small enterprise. The state in Africa has to play the role of a leveler. And this is not an easy thing, because the big business has already bought the interest of the politicians. They pay for their rallies, their running of the political parties. So what they have done strategically is to sort of pay a few people who will then control the masses to protect their interests as they amass more profit for themselves. But that in itself is not a long-term sustainable strategy. Most of the politicians will find themselves having to run away from the continent as the masses who are bearing the brunt, become intolerant to their suffering. So let's use the resources to create a good level field for people to prosper, to innovate, to create. The other thing also which is quite very important to me is my plea to fellow Africans in the diaspora. We've got Africans in the Caribbean, in the US, in Europe. I feel that I have to make this serious plea to them. Come home. Africa is your home. Africa is full of wealth and untapped potential. You have to come and take advantage of this untapped potential. It's your home, so you have a right to come reconnect to your motherland, reconnect with your people, instead of sitting by the fence from somewhere laughing at the challenges that the continent has. You rather come home and say, let us get our hands dirty. Let's make sure that this continent thrives. Because the resources are here. We don't have to be beggars. So there's opportunities in tourism space, in education. You can come here. Our educational facilities in the continent are quite very poor. You can establish private schools. You can establish private universities. It's unlimited. The potential is completely unlimited. Agro-processing is another thing. Manufacturing, we don't manufacture a whole lot of the stuff that we use. So your pounds, your dollars can go an extra mile. You can take advantage of that. Come here. If your dollar amounts to 17 or 18 rands in South Africa, it can do 18 times more here. And here we have the land, we have the minerals, we have the resources, human resources that you can tap into. We've got thirsty people who are looking for work, who can work for 24 hours. We have got people who can travel 24 hours running enterprises here in the continent. So you come home, all your interests are covered. If you're interested in tourism, there's opportunities there. If you're interested in the financial sector, there's opportunities there. You can open banks. If you're interested in manufacturing, opportunities are unlimited there. Also, in the diaspora, try and establish a community of people that can be used to mobilize resources. If you want to invest here in Africa, you don't have to come as an individual all the time. You can pull your resources together. You can have that opportunity to do research. And once you do the research, you can be able to minimize the risks. You can do the due diligence. So form structures there that can do all the homework before you can set foot here. I just want to put a challenge there. I'm willing to experiment by finding one individual coming from the diaspora to invest here. I'm willing to spend on that person. The person can come here. I'll accommodate that person. I will help that person to move around. I will show them potential business opportunities that are there that need investment. And sometimes the investment can be in the form of skills, can be capital, can be straight equity. Sometimes it can just be connecting businesses here with partners on the other side of the continent. There are companies that are in the West that they don't have any growth potential, but Africa has got the population, the resources. They want this particular market, and they just want somebody to be the connection in between. So you can come home to the continent and make a difference. Help address the challenges, poverty, unemployment. These things can be dealt with using entrepreneurship. I'm not making a plea for charity. Africans are very dignified people. They want to work and they're busy working. They're not sitting under the tree. There's quite a lot of things that Africans are doing here. They may not be telling their stories or projecting what they're doing, but there's quite a lot of hustle with very minimal resources. So if you come home, come to the continent, explore the opportunities, invest, I'm 100% sure you will be fulfilled. Continent is not looking for charity, like I said, it's looking for investors. We have humble people who want to trade. So you come here, really come with your own also, your humble approach. Come here to trade with fellow Africans as equals, not with the intention to exploit them or to look down upon them. Africans know what is happening here. They've got a lot of experience. They've tested a lot of things. So you don't have to come here and think that Africans are really stupid, desperate. They just need to be helped. There is not much they are doing for themselves. That will be the very wrong spirit to set your foot here, and it may lead to your failure. Come down, explore sometimes before you can do anything. Spend time exploring. Travel. It's easier, it's cheaper for you if you're sitting in the diaspora. That is my plea to you, and I believe the unity that we can do can make our continent great. We don't have to go to the West asking for money. Our countries don't have to perpetually borrow money. We can do something about our continent and do good. So once again, this is Mpho Nenweli. This is the Succeed in Business podcast. This podcast will bring the best in you. Failure is inspiration. Your success is within your reach. Do not give up. And I thank you for listening. Thank you.
If you want to get a copy of the book, contact Mpho Nenweli at 082 567 3099 on WhatsApp and on email mpho@anisa.co.za. The book costs 259 rands including courier.